this message reaches you, I have the privilege, real privilege, of introducing Dee Dee Baker, Executive Director and founder of Dog Tag Buddies. I like to say, AKA a super badass. I have watched from the behind the scenes a little bit of how much push she has been pushing this big ass boulder up the hill to help out veterans, help out their families, push for people to be aware of the legislation. Super kind hearted woman. And she seems like a porcupine on the outside, but probably one of the nicest people you would meet. How you doing, Dee Dee?
I'm good. How are you this morning? That's a great introduction. I love it.
Well, I have had the privilege of actually just seeing you a little bit behind the scenes, and it really does mean a lot to me. Like I have actually reached it's what I've seen you do for veterans, what I've seen you do for people, what I've seen you do for families. It's you're an unstoppable force.
Well, thank you. I think we live in an area. I think that's part of our culture in Montana. You help your neighbor. You do the right thing. You step up where you can. You do what you can, and get out of the way for people that are actually trying to do things.
Well, you and I don't want to say you as pointing a finger, but you have been a person that has really raised up a mantle, and I have seen it with my old occupation of, hey, this is the paperwork I need. This is the paperwork how I need to actually help out the people that we're both serving. I don't want extra paperwork. Please take this bloody extra paperwork and burn it. I just need certain things from you, and just let me help the people, and let's actually be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people because again, I do something that is so specialized and we haven't really talked about that, but I work with veterans and I pair them with dogs. So when we're talking about what those needs are, if I get a medical file that is 6 inches thick, first of all, I'm not a medical provider. I'm not equipped to read through that narrative and understand what it means. I'm looking for some really specific things. And so I've been, again, working with you, working with the VA here in Billings. I think we've done a really good job of educating and advocating and helping people understand from the outside looking in, what does this look like.
And I agree. Yeah. So let's just rewind and I want to ask you, what do you do? What is Dog Tag Buddies and how did you start this up?
So I'll start with the past and I'll bring you up to the current. My husband served in Iraq in 2004 and 2005. He served with the Montana National Guard. He was actually on a stop loss. He was supposed to retire in May of 2005, which was the same year our daughter was going to graduate. We were super excited. That didn't happen. He was on a stop loss, so he retired in May of 26 or 2006, excuse me. And so for us as a National Guard family, he didn't deploy. He wasn't mobilized. We didn't go through that. And so when he was put on active duty to go to Iraq, that was something we weren't prepared for. I mean, we were used to the weekends. We were used to him going to AT. We were used to him going to a lot of different schools throughout the year. But to be gone for such a long period of time and then not know what that really looked like for us was pretty challenging. Um, I always tell people 9/11 changed us all. 9/11 made a difference in each and every one of our lives, and we didn't know what that looked like until we did. And for us, it was him being deployed. And then when he came home, because of his job, him and his group were the first ones in, last ones out for every mission for 11 months. So they had lots of experience with IEDs. Thankfully, they all came home. I mean, at the end of the day, that was the blessing. But when you experience those percussive explosions that IEDs create, and the number of times that it happened and the challenges that go along with that, we weren't prepared for what PTS looked like and what a traumatic brain injury looked like and what coming home looks like. And for us as a family, we've always had dogs. We've always been integrated with. They're always a part of our lives. And so for him, what I started seeing was the dogs were the one thing that made a difference. When he was having really rough days, he could come in the house, he could sit down. And we have schnauzers, and we have a running joke at my house that it's a dang shame he doesn't like schnauzers. My first one that I got in 1993, he was livid. We're not getting this dog. When he went to Iraq, he said, "Don't let anything happen to Watson while I'm gone." Well, I said I wouldn't, and I didn't. He was my heart dog. Unfortunately, we lost him about 6 months after he came home. And shortly after that, I said, I can't replace him. He was my heart dog, but I need a puppy. And again, we had the conversation of, we didn't talk about this. You didn't say we were going to get a dog. We ended up getting another puppy, miniature schnauzer. It was supposed to be my birthday present that year. The day I brought him home, he said, hey, can you bring the puppy over so I can meet him? Because he was working. I said, oh, sure. Big mistake. That puppy actually became his dog. That puppy became his reason. And as we sat and watched this evolution, you don't know what it looks like until you do. And then you're like, hey, I really can see a difference in you when you're sitting with these dogs. And we started talking about, in general, some of the challenges he had, the not wanting to go to town, not wanting to go grocery shopping, being angry all the time, yelling at people in the car, all the things that go along with the challenges that are inherent to serving. And I said, I see what this does for you. And at the time, we were doing a whole lot of other things with dogs. I was accumulating more dogs along the way, as we do. And I was working with one in particular to train to be a therapy dog, excuse me. And we had 2 young dogs at the time. And I said, hey, they both need training. I can't do this myself. How about you come and help me? And the first time he told this dog to do something and she actually did it, he's like, oh my gosh, did you see that? And I'm like, yeah, that's training. That's what happens. And that kind of led to some more conversation because we were also doing some volunteering with the local shelter. And what we were seeing was a lot of really cool dogs that were ending up in the shelter that really through no fault of theirs. You get this cute puppy, you don't train it. And then at 6 months, it's knocking the toddlers over. It's tearing holes in grandma's arm, stealing sandwiches, jumping on the counter. Off to the shelter you go because they just don't have time. And so that led us to really just having a kitchen table conversation of, what if we could help veterans find, kind of like a matching service for dogs and veterans, help them find a dog and then take them through obedience training so that they have this dog. And that's really where this started, was that evolution of, I had veterans just started telling me, I need more than that. I wasn't a dog trainer. I love my dogs and I know just enough to be dangerous. But at that time, I was not a dog trainer. I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew what a service dog was. I knew what the laws were. I understood, the challenges and the things that you need to go through to get there to a small degree. So what I did was started reaching out to organizations saying, hey, you guys are already doing this. Have you looked at Montana? Have you looked at our demographics? We have a lot of veterans per capita. We have a whole bunch of veterans that have, come back, and our population of veterans, we're a very patriotic state. And so I thought somebody would jump on that, and really they didn't. The only organization I heard from was a very large organization that said, you're not a dog trainer, take your toys and go home. Cool. I can learn how to train dogs. And basically what I was learning along the way was the people that were doing these programs were in most cases were dog trainers that a veteran had showed up with a dog and said, hey, I'm a veteran, I have PTSD, I need this dog trained to be my service dog. And they're like, cool, I'm in. I didn't come at it from that approach. I came at it from the approach of, I live with this every day. As the wife of a veteran, I know what happened while he was in country. I know what it looked like when he came home. I know what he was like before he went. How do we make a difference in the lives of these veterans and their families? It's not just about a veteran, because we all know when we're going through those challenges, it affects everybody. And it's a cumulative challenge, because if you don't start addressing some of these things, everything below the surface, it's kind of like that iceberg. You see the tip, you don't see the rest of it. And so for us, building out an organization like we did really came from that experience, and really came from seeing, what does this look like? And as a family member, nobody really talks about that. And I, in some cases, I've actually been like, oh, you're not a veteran, you can't help veterans, go away. And I'm like, yeah, but I live with a veteran. I've seen this. I've watched what happens. I see what happens to the families. And if we don't help our veterans, we're not helping our families. So long story short, I had nobody help me with this. We had to figure out what it looked like. So we started building it from the ground up, and we started looking at, in Montana, how do we remove barriers? What does this look like from beginning to end? What does it look like for the veterans that live in, say, the western part of the state? We're in Billings, Montana. Montana is a huge state. And so figuring out what that looks like. So what we did was build a model where veterans could participate regardless of where they live, and making sure that along the way I always tell people, we're building the plane as we're flying it, because there's so many things that come up, and there's so many pieces to the puzzle that we need to look at. and it's constantly evolving. At first I thought, oh, we're just going to train the veteran to train the dog. The joke was on me. The hard part is the human end of the leash. It's not the dog. The dogs are the easy part. And so for us, we've really tried to create a new focus on the human end of the leash. We're training both ends of the leash, but let's be honest, the biped's way harder. And knowing that and acknowledging that and being willing to look at it and go, well, this isn't working. And also knowing it's not a one size fits all.
So the people that are not familiar with Montana, they did a tip to tip from southeast Montana to northwest Montana. The southeast Montana will touch Texas before it touches the northwest of Montana. It's a very, very long state. It's very rural. Even Billings, being the largest city, it's 150,000, I think, greater, and it's the biggest city within 500 miles. So the couple questions I wanted to get to was when you were talking, it was like, how was it being the wife of seeing, or you are the wife, seeing your husband leave for the National Guard, and then also how was he when he came home? Was he the same person? And what did you experience?
So the going was hard because we'd experienced periods of time separate. Like he worked out of town. He had, like at the time he left, he was working rotating shifts. So he spent a lot of nights working. That kind of a separation we weren't prepared for. We didn't know what that was. And we did okay, granted. I think for us, the best piece of it for us was we were both a little bit older. The hard part was our daughter was a senior in high school the year that he deployed. And everybody talks about the little kids and how much they miss mommy or daddy, but what they don't recognize and acknowledge is the older the child is, the more of an understanding they have, the news, the constant news, the conversations, the things that happen. I think that was a harder piece that I didn't know was going to be the challenge, is helping her be okay with this. And it was hard. But for him coming home, was he the same person? Absolutely not. The first year was really hard, and it was little simple things. You don't realize how that impacts people until it does. And as the wife, you watch this happen. You watch the changes. And I see why people walk away. It's easy to walk away. It's a lot harder to stay. And it's a lot harder to figure out, how do we work through this? How do we navigate it? We're 20 years into him coming home, and we still have challenges. But we're just better equipped to deal with it, I think, because we have maturity on our side, which makes a difference.
The next question I think about is, you talked about the biped, the human on the other side of the leash, and you're working with certain types of people. A lot of the individuals have post-traumatic stress or TBIs. When you start seeing them catch on, like when you start seeing them change, like what is the first thing that you start noticing when you are training them?
I think the first thing that I notice, you start hearing some self-awareness. And I'll give you an example. When you're training a dog and you're holding onto the leash, everything that you feel from here runs right down that leash to the dog. And so initially we see things like the dog is acting up, the dog is squirrely, the dog's not listening, the dogs are, they're doing all these things, and the veteran's like, my dog won't pay attention. Great. How are you feeling today? What's going on with you? Asking questions of the human, because I don't care how the dog is acting. We can get through that. What I care about is what role are you playing in why the dog is behaving this way? And once they start realizing that introspection becomes a huge piece of this. Because here's the deal. If I take this dog and I fully train this dog and I hand you the leash and I say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, training you how to use your dog, that's a pretty short time period. We spend 24 months working with our veterans. We spend 2 years going through this. So we're with them every single week. It takes our veterans about 14 months to start recognizing and acknowledging that the dog is doing the job we're training it to do. And it comes in little tiny waves. Really little things will happen, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what my dog did. It's like, oh, tell me more. Really, tell me more. And so they'll start as they start getting that realization of what the dog is doing, that the dog is not being naughty. And I'll give you an example. We teach our dogs how to just lay down and relax. And we call it just, have them rest on it. We call it place. Just go place, go lay down. The dog will lay down. The veteran will put the dog in a place. The veteran will go sit down in their chair, and all of a sudden the dog gets up, breaks their place, comes over, puts their head in their lap, and keeps bugging them. Initially, what I get is this dog won't listen to me. This dog won't pay. I put him in place, and he keeps getting up, and he keeps coming over. I said, so he doesn't need to go outside. Nope. He's not going for food or drink. Nope. Not going for toys. Nope. He's coming up to you every time. He says, yeah. Did we train that? What's going on with you? What's happening with you at the time that this is going on? And through the process of me asking questions, of the trainers asking questions, of us really kind of diving into what's happening with the human, then all of a sudden they go, oh, the lights come on, and they have that aha moment. And I think for us, that's really where the magic starts happening. Once they start realizing that all of this time and work that we've put into the training of this dog is being reflected back in you and what's happening with you. And so that's kind of the secret sauce, is letting them come to that understanding of, oh, my dog just did this. And some of them are quicker than others. Some of them, it takes a really long time. Let's be honest. It's how we get there, though. Again, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not a you're doing this wrong. It's let's just keep working on this. And, we always tell people we train to standards, not to time, because of the challenges that we experience, the challenges we deal with our veterans. If I put a timeline on something, I have a lot of veterans that are like, they'll fall apart. They will literally fall apart. The day we tell them we're going to do our first evaluation, they're trying to figure out ways to get out of it. It's like, you're ready for this. We've trained for this. You know this. And so really spending a lot of time just teaching them to give themselves grace, teaching them to be more introspective, and teaching them to understand that when the service dog is not the magic pill. It will never be the magic pill. It's in conjunction with all these other things. So I have to teach the veteran that when the dog tells you something is going on, the dog is not going to jump up and suddenly say, hey, did you know you're about to have a panic attack? The dog instead is going to be nudging you, going to be doing this, and they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to keep doing it. It's up to the human to have the tools and the skills to be able to acknowledge that, number one, the dog just told me something. Number two, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's going on with me? And number three, what do I need to do so I can continue to move forward? That, at the end of the day, that is the goal. How do we keep you moving forward?
The thing I love about hearing about people working with horses or working with dogs or working with other living objects, they're seeing the reflection in another thing that cannot speak the same language. So they're not able to get that feedback. And it creates this introspection of, hey, what is going on in my body? And a thing that I learned, and similar, but it's different. And I was working with an occupational therapist one time, and she gave me a bunch of balls and a bunch of rocks. And she said, Will, what's going on? She hands me a rock or a marble, and she said, my hands. I'm like, oh, they're pretty big. I can carry most of the stuff. But this bucket was huge. And when it dropped out, like when something dropped, she said, why don't you tell me to hold on to something? Why didn't you just ask me to put it down for a second? And this was just a physical representation because most of the time it was just in my head. And when I hear about when people are working with dogs, especially with you, Dee Dee, and this is why I have a lot of respect for you, is you have a lot of patience for the person to understand, yes, if your dog is acting up, it's because it's alerting you to something. It's alerting you to your anxiety. And I think this is where the misconception is. You walk around with a dog, the dog is supposed to self-soothe you, and you're not supposed to feel these emotions anymore. That's where I think a lot of people have the wrong information. The dog is like right now, Z right here, and I do this all the time. He's just still a puppy, but at the same time, he just wants me to pet him when I start to feel a little bit. And It's just allowing me to know, hey, Will, just take a breath. Will, it's okay. Or he just wants to say, Dad, stop sitting still and let's go do something.
Hmm. And I think sometimes that's the most important thing is recognizing that and acknowledging that. And so when we're training these dogs, we also have to look at what's realistic, because I can typically, when a veteran comes into my program, the first two things I ask them is, tell me why a service dog, and what is it you would like to accomplish with that service dog beside you. The dog's job is not to guard you. The dog's job is not to keep people away from you. The dog's job is not to stand between you and the public. And there's this whole misconception, and it's rampant, unfortunately, that the dog, I need this dog to keep people away from me. That's not the goal. The goal is social mobility. The goal is to get you out and get you doing things. And I had a really interesting conversation with a veteran yesterday, in fact, and he said, I'm getting really good at looking at the inside of my garage door. And he said, I went to schedule, I talked to my provider, I needed a mental health appointment. And he said that the provider said they would set it up. They called him, and the first thing the mental health provider said is, well, let's do telehealth. And he said, I almost laughed at him, because that's part of my challenge is I need to get out. I need to go do things. And so if you're going to keep me at home to do these appointments, what am I doing? And he didn't follow through. And so helping everybody understand that these dogs and what we teach them, it's not just about the dog alerting you. It's about the dog helping you learn how to move through life in a meaningful way. It's about the dog being that constant by your side that can tell you when you're about to have a panic attack, or you're about to have an anxiety attack, or you're starting to elevate in one way or another. We want you to learn how to get out of fight, flight, or freeze and move into executive thinking. What's next? And that's where our program, I believe, spends a lot of time with the human end of the leash, because we need to teach those skills to help you be able to recognize that the dog alone is not going to be the catalyst to fix anything. The dog is going to be the catalyst to let you know something is going on, but I have to help you build tools to figure out what that looks like. And I love what you said about doing occupational therapy. We actually rolled occupational therapy into our program just for that reason, because occupational therapy is about doing. Most people that join the military are doers. And when they come home, the same things that keep them stuck are the things that we can probably help with through the use of occupational therapy. The therapist can sit down and go, okay, let's talk about right out of the gate, what are some of the challenges you experience? And we always frame it in, when you come into the program, what is one thing that we can work on before you get your dog that is going to help you as you look at getting placed with a dog? And so we just take small goals and work with them, with the veteran, to help them learn that, nothing is insurmountable. We can figure out ways around this. And the fact that you had an occupational therapy helping you with those things really, to me, makes my heart happy, because they're underutilized. And I think that there is a huge, huge value to what OTs can do, especially in Montana, because occupational therapists are also considered frontline mental health providers. A lot of people don't know that. We have long waits to get to mental health providers. We have, in some cases, you mentioned it earlier, we're rural to frontier rural. We have about 7.8 people per square mile in the state of Montana, in an area that covers over 147,000 square miles.
1 second, Didi. We're full, by the way. It's the same Montana's full. Go on.
Yeah, gotcha. I had to think about that one. No. But that, knowing that those are some of the demographics we're dealing with, and knowing that, geographically, we really do have a lot of space to cover. And so by using occupational therapists, if I can help you learn to deal with some of the challenges, the sleep habits, the eating habits, the easily overwhelmed, sensory overload, which is a huge, huge challenge when it comes to helping someone work through. And the more I get involved with this, the more I learn, the more I'm like, sensory overload is probably one of the biggest challenges that most of our veterans are experiencing. And that's where the OT can come in and say, what else can we do? Let's figure out what some other strategies are. Let's figure out what tools can we give you so that you can address these in a way that's meaningful for you. Because again, it's not a one size fits all, and we have to look at everything that we do holistically.
So the thing I want to throw out there too is when we are looking at the somatic of when people are doing the touch, it actually allows them to be in the present. The An individual that's used to doing verbal judo or not knowing how to really use therapy, because what we'll say is that we'll sit on a couch, hey, fix me. This is the language I used to use. This is the language I understand a lot of people used to use as well. Fix me. Well, they're not here to fix you. They're here to guide you. They're here to help you understand.
Yep.
If you're a little boy that usually comes from a lower social economic, or a person that grew up in a family that it was more rough and tumble, they don't learn how to delay the gratification. When I'm saying that, to get out of sitting in that discomfort, being able to identify what emotion are they feeling. And with an occupational therapist, it allows them to be like, ooh, yeah, okay, great. This is how I'm feeling. Another thing, when you talk about sleep habits, Rocky Mountain College was doing this for quite some time, the sleep study.
Yep.
And shout out to the students, shout out to the individuals that were running it, Dr. Carroll, Amanda Carroll, and her partner. The thing I learned too is from there was a book. It was called by Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, and one of the parts in sleep that we don't always focus on, not sedation of using marijuana or other substances of alcohol. Yeah, it actually helps us be knocked out. It does, but it actually blocks our REM, and our REM is where our emotions are starting to get processed, not just from the day, but actually from the time. And we start going through it. And if we're able to delay it and not actually be overwhelmed, we're able to start to be a little bit more here in the moment.
And I think that's incredibly important because sleep is where the healing occurs too. When you are constantly sleep deprived and you're constantly in this spiral, it makes it really difficult for anything else to get in. And I always tell people, like, by the time a veteran comes to my program, we're not their first choice. We're not even in the top 5. They have typically been out of the military 10 or more years. They've gone to the VA. They've tried medication. They've tried counseling. They've tried alternative therapies. They've probably self medicated and probably made some poor life choices along the way. So that's 7 before we ever see them. And so knowing, I think the harder part for me is when they walk in, they say, I feel like this is my last chance. I don't ever want somebody to walk in and tell me I feel like this is their last chance and really believe that. I want them to know that we're going to do whatever we can to help get through this because you matter. Your life matters. Your family matters. How do we help you? And a service dog is not the answer for everybody. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But right now, when you look at what a service dog is going to do, it's not just about the veteran, it's about the things they get. I've had veterans that have gotten dogs before we even got through the training process that have said, you have no idea what you've done. I'm sleeping better because I know that dog is there. Does that make it a service dog? Absolutely not. But is that a byproduct of this individual having this dog, working with this dog, and going home? Absolutely. We teach these dogs skills depending, because I have some veterans that have severe night terrors. I mean, to the point where they're violent. And so we can teach these dogs how to wake them up. But we also have to be very cognizant of how we do that because I don't want my dogs getting hurt. How do we teach that in a way? And once that starts happening and these dogs are able, we don't, here's the scientific term about what we do. And I'll use the night terrors. When you have a night terror, you're way up here. What happens before that? What happens before that? What happens before that? What happens way back here? The scientific term is the thing before the thing before the thing. I don't want you getting up here and the dog having to wake you up here. I want to know what happens way back here that the dog can start seeing a cue that you're about to get into that state. And the dog can go, hey, 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 wake up. That's where the magic happens. And I've actually succeeded in that. I had a veteran who said, I had never been able to go back to sleep after a nightmare. My dog started waking me up before I got to that point. I'm able to go back to sleep and get a decent night's sleep so that when I wake up in the morning, I feel better. So when you look at it from that aspect and you look at what the dog is doing, it is a holistic approach. Because if you're taking medication, if you're doing all these other things, there's nothing that's going to tell you, hey, you're having that nightmare again, wake up.
When I think I've told you this in the past, but I have also said it on my episodes way back. When I was with one of my partners, a Smokey, which was my husky, that dog right there. I will say, don't get a husky unless you want to actually hate yourself. And so Smokes used to try to wake me up, but he got to the point that he outsmarted me, and he used to yank my partner out of bed. He used to grab her by the arm and start pulling her out of the bed because, like you said, we have people that are violent, and we use the word violent to be able to express the physical actions of what they're doing. But we're Mr. Hyde. I like to say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde like to play. Mr. Hyde is more the emotional responses of, hey, I need to be able to fight. I'm startled. I feel alone. He talked about how the dog was in the room to be able to help them sleep. Something that the average person doesn't understand. When you go to combat or you go to war, you have some knuckleheads that are right by you. You know that some of them are rednecks, some of them are city slickers. It doesn't friggin' matter. And they have your back. And when you come home to a place that is safe, and I have to use quotation marks because mentally we don't feel like we're safe because
Yep.
we're alone. We're holding this burden alone. And we have this dog that can't speak, that just accepts us, that shows us love. Like the new dog I got now, he'll sleep up in the bed with me all the time. He lets me know, hey, let's go for a walk, let's go for a hike. The husky I felt bad for because I didn't know how to express that emotion. And if people are thinking about this, and I never went through a therapy dog, but from my perspective on this is when we start to allow ourselves to heal or try different modalities, we're allowing not only ourselves to be accepted by dogs, but we're allowing ourselves to be accepted by people and being able to have that type of love and understanding.
And I think you you just hit on something because we spend a lot of time, from the spouse side, veterans spend a lot of time pushing away. And I don't there's nothing in me that says it's intentional. It still has an impact. It impacts how you are as a spouse, how you are as a partner, how you are as a parent, how you are as an employee, how you are as a community member. And once we start working through the process of training these veterans and the dogs, it's like that pebble in the pond. It starts having that ripple effect. It changes who they are because we're changing how their brains are working. And it's not an intentional, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, or any of those other things. It's the beauty of going through this training with the dog and helping these veterans learn how to be introspective, to be able to look at their own behaviors, to be able to look at their own reactions, and to see it's okay to be emotional. And I think it becomes easier once they learn how to connect with that dog. The dogs, you said it earlier, the dogs don't judge. The dogs don't, they don't care. They're in it to win it. They don't care. Like they're going to do everything they can to be your buddy. And having that connection, once the veterans start having that connection in a way that's meaningful, it actually does start branching off. They become better spouses, they become better parents, they become better employees, they become better community members. And overall, having that kind of an impact, going to counseling doesn't have that impact. Taking medication doesn't have that impact. Stewing in their own juices doesn't have that impact. Thinking they can handle it on their own doesn't have that impact. But once they start working with that dog and they make that connection, and it's funny to watch them, they get so emotional, which is something that's been missing. The emotion, no, let me rephrase that. The emotions are not missing. The negative emotions are always there. And they're always quick to find the negative. But once we start crossing that line into, oh, this is a positive, this is a, oh, the dogs make the difference because the dog can do things that people can't. And it's not just about the emotional support, it's about knowing that these dogs are specifically trained. to help them through these challenges, to let them know. But it's kind of like I've explained to people, if you broke your arm and I gave you a set of crutches, would that be the proper equipment for that injury? It absolutely would not. So we have to very carefully look at, is a dog going to realistically be able to help you? What does that look like for you as an individual? Once we start looking at the skills and the tasks that we're going to train these dogs, and the veteran can start seeing that in action, because that's the key word, it's in action. It's not in theory. It's no longer something that's unattainable. They start seeing how these dogs are reacting to them, because that's really what we train them to do. The dogs are trained to watch you, to listen to you, to pick up on cues that you are doing that you don't even know you're doing. I know you've probably seen it where there's a tapping of a foot, there's a wringing of a hand, there's a picking, there's physical things that start happening. We teach the dogs to recognize that long before the veteran ever elevates up here and the dog is telling them. We want them to get back into that normal stasis of, this is where you should be. You're in range, that normal human emotion stays, so that there's fewer times that it elevates way up here or it goes way down here. We want to keep you in the middle, and we want to be able to do it in a way that is respectful and meaningful to the veteran, because this isn't about saying you're broken or something's wrong. It's about, how do we help you find a new normal? What does that look like for you as an individual? It's not the same for everybody. And knowing that and really digging in, because it is hard to have these conversations, they're pretty powerful, but they're also very emotional. We have a kind of a running joke, I make grown men cry. And I don't do it on purpose. I do it because I'm asking these really hard questions. And when they start going through the process of processing those emotions and processing why a dog, knowing that at the end of the day, this is going to change your life.
Dee Dee, you know that you make these grown men cry is because it's not even because you're just a tough person. It's because you genuinely care. You genuinely are asking them, hey, what is going on? Like, how many times and I'm actually working to actually start next month on the 12th for my master's in social work. And one of the things that they do is they tell you, this is not ours. This is for you. This is supposed to be a sounding board. And there is this emotional cutoff that you can't be invested into them, where you come at it where it's like, hey, I'm asking you this question. It might suck, but I love you. And what's going on? Tell me more.
Exactly. And when I start talking about, what is it that you would like to have this dog do for you? What is it that is realistic that we can have the dog, that we can train this dog to recognize? And I'll give you an example. I had a veteran that we started having these conversations, and she said, well, I need this dog to go get my partner when I black out in the store. And I said, that's not realistic. And again, that thing before the thing before the thing. It took us 3 weeks to figure out, what is that thing? What happened? What is the soonest we can acknowledge and recognize that you're getting to that point, that the dog can start telling you you're doing that thing, so that you never black out in the store, that you never have that disconnect and don't know what's going on around you. We never want you to get to that point, but getting to the point with those conversations, again, veterans are about doing. Y'all join because you're doers. And so living life is about doing. And what does that look like on an individual basis? And sometimes it is an emotional conversation, because there's two pieces. There's one, I have to acknowledge that I need some help. But I also have to acknowledge that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I might be able to find a new normal. And that's why asking and really, really listening to what they're saying matters. I can't do what I'm doing if I don't listen to them. And the other piece of it is, if they've got partners, if they've got family members, having conversations with them is equally as important, because veterans that have family support tend to do better in this program. It's really hard to get mired in your own muck. It's really hard to say, I can't come to training today. I can't do this. I can't do that. It's like, well, What's going on? What can we do to help mitigate some of that? And the family members will push a little bit more, which I think is sometimes we all need that.
So there's an area that I realized a while back when I came out of a residential for 13 weeks, and I came back to just my dogs. And as you're talking about the dogs, I was thinking about how I was able to start to be showing my emotion. My Doberman at that time, I actually remember he had his second bout of colitis and fourth impaction, and he was about 9.5 years old. And I knew it was time because I was going on the road, and I started weeping. And I started weeping, weeping, weeping. And then I had my husky left. But what was interesting is that when I was on the road and then I had the privilege and opportunity of moving to Montana, what I didn't have the old community that was trying to have me go back to the person I used to be. So I was predictable. And if you have the support of the family, the support of the friends, and saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay for you to be this person that you're trying to be. I got your back. Like, I've seen this time and time where people go to, say, a residential or acute psychiatric, and they don't have their friends the same or the family saying, hey, lean on me. Let's make these phone calls. And I believe with the dog, it allows them to walk through this journey together with, like you said, even the smorgasbord of full mental health, other situations that they can do.
And I think that's important. And I think that, we always look at it from the aspect of when you come into our program, you're stuck with us for a really long time. I mean, we're there for the life of this service dog. And building that rapport and those relationships, we have a lot of veterans where they know if they can't talk to somebody at home, they'll be sending us text messages. That we're never going to judge them. We're never going to turn our back on them. I might not be able to fix what's going on, but who do I know that can help? And I think that's one of the cool things about what we do is I'm not an island and I'm not a silo. I have Billings, I think, in and of itself, we've done a really good job of creating some unique spaces for veterans and their families. And I think that as a veteran service provider to veterans and their families, having other organizations that I can reach out to if I have a veteran or a family member that needs something different, I think just helping them build that sense of community is a big deal. And again, not siloing. Like for me, I love to collaborate with other organizations. I work pretty closely with Veterans Navigation Network because I know if I don't know the answer, I can pick up the phone and call them and ask them. The same with the VA. I had, another individual there that if there's something I'm not sure about, I pick up the phone or I send an email. And it's very rare I don't get a response. When I say, hey, I've got a veteran, this is what's going on, what can we do? And I love that about our community. And I think that for me, because of the community model that we do, which is where the dog and the veteran are paired together, the dog's not trained. The veteran has to come to class every week. And it's much like basic training. They are thrown into a group of people that they didn't know, that they probably in the real world would have never connected with.
Mm-hmm.
But you start connecting over a shared experience of training the dog. And you start building a new sense of community. And for me and my husband, that was always one of the things we also wanted to give our veterans is it's not just about you and this dog. It's about this community that we're building around you. It's about a community that you get to be a part of. And watching that evolution has been so, like, it makes my heart happy every time I see it happen. I've got groups where I've got a group in Great Falls. They have a group text message and they're always texting and supporting and asking questions and, ribbing each other and doing things that are meaningful. And it creates a sincere connection for them. I had a group here in Billings. I had 2 men and 2 women in a class. And one of the guys and one of the gals, they just were like oil and water, didn't get along, kept button heads, and it was a summer of 22 and we had a whole lot going on. And so my lead trainer had a situation come up one day and she's like, hey, you're going to have to do class. I got to go. I like, gotcha. No worry. They started coming in and I said, guys, give me 5 minutes. I've got to finish this up and then I'll be with you. And I looked at the back of my training center and the 4 of them, there were 4 in the class. They were sitting on the floor in a little triangle or a little square with their dogs laying there and they were just having a conversation. I don't even know what they were talking about. I didn't even care. What I cared about was at that moment they were connecting, and they were connecting with each other, and it was meaningful. And so 5 minutes turned into 15. I just let them do it. And over a period of time, letting them do that, the two that didn't get along found out that they had been in Afghanistan at about the same time at the same fob. That in and of itself changed the dynamics for how they communicated. And they've all been graduated for a couple of years. They're still connected. That's powerful.
It is powerful. And like you said, that you had the other people you could reach out to in the community. You had the VNN, you had the Veteran Meat Locker, the APC, the VA, you have Veteran Inc., VOA. There's not a one size fits all for a person. Like I
No.
called up Veteran Inc. because I had a veteran that I was working with that needed extra resources, needed actually have his rent paid. So if you think about it, his rents need to be paid. What about his food? So they got in touch with
Yes.
Faith Eat Chapel, and also the food bank. They got him non-perishables and perishables. Well, what else would a person that needs this? Well, they might need a little bit of clothes. So they got in touch with somebody else. And it wasn't just about trying to do handouts. Well, a lot of times when a person is at these breaking points of, hey, I'm actually finally asking for help, there's usually a whole list of stuff that there's
Yes.
all this shame, there's questions that
Yes.
I don't know how
Yes.
to even ask, or somebody's going to show up for me. And trying to show people it's okay for a person to see you. We're not going to judge you. We're not going to judge you about the scars. We're not going to judge you about anything else. We're just meeting you with love.
And I think that's super important. And I think you hit on a key factor there that typically by the time a veteran is in crisis or their family's in crisis, it's not just one thing. It's not what was the tipping point. There's a whole lot of other things. And for us, like I can't be everything to everybody. I can't do it. And I know I can't. But having these other resources and being able to guide my veterans and their families, because let's be honest, our families are equally as important as the veterans that served. They served in their own way. And I think a lot of times that gets forgotten. And the families kind of get, well, you're not a veteran, so we're going to just deal with the veteran. What I love about Billings is we really have created spaces for the families as well, and meaningful spaces. Watching some of the other organizations as they have, kind of spearheaded and done some really cool things in the community, like Veterans Meat Locker. Let's look at them. No questions asked. Here's a box of meat. These veterans are showing up, but they're feeding their families and they're doing things in a way that are meaningful. No food insecurity. We know that's a big deal. We know housing insecurity is a big deal. And typically there's other things that have happened. There's challenges with making payments, there's challenges with education, there's challenges with some of these other things. And knowing that we can create that space is super important for them. Looking at it from the aspect of what you said about it's hard to ask for help. I get that a lot from veterans. I get them walking in going, I don't really know that I need a service dog. There's probably somebody that needs it worse than me. And I have to explain to them, it's not who needs it more than. There's plenty to go around. I am never going to look at a veteran and go, well, you're not quite as bad as this person, so no, we're not going to help you. And I'm always struck by veterans, and they're doing it. They genuinely believe that. They genuinely believe I don't need this or I don't deserve this. Somebody needs it more than me. And I hear the same thing about them when they're applying for veteran benefits. It's like, we don't have like a cap. You earned these benefits. Let's see what we can do to help you with that. And really helping them understand that it's not a handout. You signed on a dotted line. You earned every one of these benefits. And it has struck me time and time again how veterans look out for other veterans in ways they don't even realize. And it makes me proud to be a part of this community.
The aspect that I don't think we talk about enough is that if a person heals, or when they start healing, if they're healing for them, they're healing for their family, they're healing for the coworkers, they're healing for everybody else. And you start putting in that good, positive energy for other people. What happens is then it becomes radioactive and it becomes this plus It's not 1+1 = 2, because 1+1 = 3, and it starts to have a multitude of impact.
Yep, it's a
And
force multiplier.
yep, and it's interesting how many times like I know myself, I know other people. They're like, hey, you know what? Somebody else needs this bed more than I do. I don't need it anymore. And then if you're lucky enough, you have a person that genuinely cares and says, pretty much, shut the f up. You need this.
You need this.
You need this. You need this. It's like, well, what about no? Just shut the f up. Be here. Be in the moment with me. Let's work together. And when a person is healing, they know that they're putting this extra love into them. They want to see them prosper. They want to see them grow. They want to see them heal, because at the end of the day, the likelihood of them coming back becomes less and less. And it's not saying that they don't like the person, that they don't want to see him again. They want them to actually live their own life. They want them to get up, not need me, go out there and go be that change in the world. And at the end of the day, too, they're on a merry way, living with their wives, their kids, their dogs, cats. I don't know why people are cat people, but there are just people in general that just want to get out there. So
And I
I
think
really
that
do
goes
appreciate what you're doing.
that goes back to that new normal of finding what does that look like. And I'll share a quick story with you. I had a veteran that his goal in life was, I want to be able to go to my kids' events. It's too overwhelming for me right now. I can't do this. So about 6 months after he came into the program, he sent me a video or a picture, and it was his dog laying in a bleacher. And I knew what was going on that weekend. His son had basketball tournaments in another community. So I sent it back. Great job. And about half an hour later, I got a call from him. And he goes, well, we had to leave because it just got to be too much. He goes, the last half of that last game was just too much. And I said, what? He goes, yeah, we made it through 2.5 out of 3 games. He goes, I just couldn't make the last half. And I said, are you kidding? I said, you mean to tell me you sat through 2.5 out of 3 games? And he got real quiet and he goes, yeah, I did. And I'm like, way to go. For him, it was all or nothing. And fast forward to the next fall. Shh. Millie, that's enough. The next fall, his kids played in the state Class A championship football game, and they won. And this was on Saturday, and we knew because we know what people are doing. And the next night, about 7:00, it's Sunday night, my phone rang, and I'm like, it's my veteran. So I answer. I go, hey, what's going on? He goes, my wife said I had to call you. I did something normal. And I started giggling, and I said, oh, do tell. And he proceeded to tell me that he goes, the boys played in the football game and they won. They won the Class A championship. I said, I know, that's great. Congratulations. He goes, no, that's not the normal part. He goes, the normal is after the football game, the booster club had an after party for the kids. He goes, I was able to get my dog and we were able to go and we were able to stay for the entire party. He goes, I could have never done that before. Finding what that normal looks like is not going to be the same for everybody, but for our veterans that are, that we work with, we work really hard to help them start identifying and being realistic, because in his mind, the basketball games, it was succeed or fail. Mm-hmm. And I had to reframe that for him. It's not success or failure. It's you did these things in baby steps. You succeeded in getting to that game. You succeeded in sitting through a portion of those games. He could do it now. He couldn't back then, but it was not a fail. And really helping reframe. I think that's a lot of it is for veterans, you either succeed or you fail. And really spending a lot of time teaching them how to give themselves grace, how to be kind to themselves, because it's not I have another veteran that's a runner, and I'm constantly telling her, this is not a marathon. This is a journey. The journey matters. How we go down this journey is individual, but it's not a race. I'm not racing you in. I'm not racing you out. I want to make sure that by the end of this program, when you and your dog graduate, you have gained not just tools to figure out what a new normal looks like, but you've gained a new community. You've gained new friendships. You've gained a new support network. And I think at the end of the day, that in and of itself sets us apart from a lot of the other organizations, because we really are invested in that long-term success. We work with these veterans for up to 10 years, depending on how long they use that dog as a service dog. So when I said they're stuck with us, they're really stuck with us. There's not a lot of other programs where you have that longevity.
most programs don't have that longevity. It's becomes the in and outs, and there's other ones that you can continue to come back to. You can flow in and out with. But what's really nice about this is that people don't believe that they need to stay sick to be able to be part of your life.
Yes.
And that's an area that I've had a discussion with some of the therapists I had a chance to work with was sometimes this is the only healthy relationship that we have. This is the only relationship that we can be able to talk to about these things. And
Hmm.
you got a person calling you up at 7 o'clock at night and saying, "Hey, I did something normal," and do tell me what this. Oh,
Yeah.
your kid won the game. Great. I know that's not what it is. Tell me more. And it's like how many times that it just really shows that people genuinely care and they want that innocent child to be seen.
And I think that's one of the things that for me, I built this organization from the ground up as a way to honor my husband, as a way to honor his service, as a way to help other veterans. But at the end of the day, it's the dream I never knew I had. Like the the changes, the evolution of a veteran walking through my door the first time versus what they look like when they come in for graduation 2 years later. We've gone down a long path together and helping them learn that there is a path forward. And it's not about being stuck, it's about how do we help you keep moving forward. I think that's what, for me, has been pretty transformational as well. Um, just knowing that day in and day out, we're making a difference in the lives of these veterans and their families. And I hear it from their families too that, you really did save their life. That by getting this dog and working with them, you gave them a new sense of purpose, a new mission. And for a lot of us, if you get stuck, it doesn't matter whether you served, it doesn't matter, whatever the situation is. If you get stuck in your own muck and you can't get out of your own way, it makes it really hard to move forward. And sometimes you got to have somebody, give you the proverbial kick in the backside and say, hey, let's go. We're going to do this. Veterans that come to us, by the time they get there, they're ready. And if they're not ready, then we're not the best fit. But we're going to do the best we can to make sure that they know we care, that they know that we're always looking at how can we do more to help them be better? How can we give them the tools? Because I can't fix you. I can't fix you. The dog's not going to fix you. But what I can do is give you tools and give you connections that can help you in that journey.
Well, I wanted to read this to you real quick. So, first off, Chelsea, when you came on about 9:06, she was like, "Oh, Dee Dee from Dog Tag Buddies, you know Chelsea." But
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a buddy of mine that I did a retreat with. He says, "Enjoyed this so far. Unfortunately, I must go. Will, you're doing great things. Love you, Dee Dee. You are an amazing person. Dogs are incredible. They are love sponges." And so what I really liked about interviewing you is that there it's not just going to be the people here in Montana that's going to hear this. It's going to be other people across the states. I have a few people that listen in Canada, but also giving a little bit of a different reframing about what service dogs do. And it's wonderful what you are able to explain, being able to show in your own words, also storytelling. And Didi, you are an amazing person. And I know you hear that a lot. And I love watching you be uncomfortable when I saw you at the gala. You're like, stop all these damn compliments. It's just like, but what you do actually really does matter. And it has it's huge impact, not just on the person's life, not just on the four-legged creature, but the families, their friends, their coworkers. And I really do appreciate what you're doing. So, is there any kind words that you would like to give to people?
Well, first of all, thank you. I really struggle with, this isn't about me. It's about what we've created and the world that we want to create for others and we want to help them create. Um, I'm honored and I'm blessed that I get to be a part of so many people's lives and the journeys that they take. And as you said, the journey to healing, to me, that is like, it doesn't get much better than that. You know, when you look at the world as it is, you know, it's so easy to find the negative. It's so easy to find that things are really hard. And they are. Things are hard, but we can do hard things, but we can do hard things together. And I hope that anybody that hears this knows that there's always a path forward. Sometimes it's as simple as picking up the phone or sending a text message. Sometimes it's as hard as filling out an application to work with a program to get a service dog. There's always a path forward, and I always want people to know that. And I always want them to know, if you come to me and I can't help you, I'm going to do the very best I can to find who can. And I don't always know what that looks like, but I'm always willing to help.
You've done that time and time again. Dee Dee, from you actually coming in with a packet full of papers to pretty much, hey, I'm ready to talk to whoever I need to talk to. Let's actually make this user form simple, stupid, so that we can be able to make sure the shit rides, or we can be able to make it go quickly. But I really appreciate you making. Go ahead.
I think the one thing I also forgot, that everything that we do is also at no cost to our veterans. Like there's no charge, not even filling out the application. There's no charge for that. And I know there are some organizations that do, but this is truly my way of giving back to the veterans in our community and in our state. So thank you for letting me be a part of your world.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you. And I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I really do. This has been fun.